This meeting is being recorded. A very warm welcome to one and all for this contest evaluations workshop. Mission of every Toastmasters Club is to provide a positive and conducive environment for fellow members to experience the growth opportunities. And education workshops is one of the ways that we provide that platform for everybody to learn. I would like to hand over the stage to the MC for today's meeting and this workshop. Over to you, Gautami.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gayatri, DTM. This is actually a very interesting evening because evaluation workshop is something I didn't really think I would attend. Reason number one, I do not like to do evaluations. Why? Because I am not good at them. And if I'm not good at something and I'm a bad loser is a very bad combination to start with. So I never actually thought that I would ever enter an evaluation contest. I still won't. There is a big chance I'm not going to do it. But somebody told me that Toastmaster Brati, DTM, can actually change my view. Like the way he actually does evaluations is something that might make me feel like, okay, I can also do this. I don't think so. Right. Not at all. So, but because this is a very good challenge, I might get something really good in return if I win this bet. I am going to give it my best. I'm going to try to put in my 100% effort to know exactly how good evaluations can be done. Now, learning evaluations is something which I thought was the art of criticizing people. Apparently, it's not. So now, when I think of it, like someone who is actually a champion in an evaluation contest, like from the beginning of Toastmasters, I tend to feel that, okay, if I have to learn, I would rather learn it from this person. So for today's trainer, our today's guru, our today's actual teacher of the day is a man who himself started the tradition of winning at evaluation contests in our district. Secondly, he's married to a Toastmaster. So I am sure like both of them are still the champions and at the top of their game. He is a dad to two sons, which make me believe that his practice sessions are really, really on. Like he must be providing a lot of evaluations to people at his home as well. And since if his sons are more than the age of 15 or 16, he must be listening to a lot of evaluations, which are the new generation ones. I don't think there could be a better person to do this for us. So, Toastmaster Brati Sankar Ghosh, we are so excited for this evaluation workshop and the challenge is open. Please try to teach me how to do evaluations in a better way so that at least I gather up the courage to enroll, if not win. Over to you, Toastmaster Brati.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have a big round of applause for the MC for that wow introduction? Now, when I was listening to her, I suddenly remembered this picture. We used to have these cartoons where at some point of time, these cartoon figures would have a small godlike, godlike figure on one shoulder and an evil figure on the other shoulder. Yeah, it used to happen. And he used to figure out who to listen to. And I was listening to Gautami, and I just realized that there is a chance that if I get back to participating in evaluation contests, it's a great chance to take some off. Like just give a bad workshop and these guys would not be interested anymore. So competition off before even the contest starts. So I'm still, trying to figure out which one to go for, the good one or the bad one. But let me start anyway. So as I normally say this in a workshop, I have it written down so I can, almost say it from my memory. Workshop, and this has never appeared in any dictionary, but I'm hopeful it will appear in Oxford someday. Workshop to me means that we work together so that we can shop the benefits. I'm sure no one has defined workshop like this, but I'm hopeful somebody will get it. So workshop is something where all of us work together and we all of us take something back. For example, if Gautami is looking for something, I am looking for something from you guys as well. Then only we will have a very good workshop. Before we start off, I have made a small assumption. The assumption is that all of you know how to evaluate, in the sense that all of you know that we should have some commendation, we should have some recommendation, we should have some conclusion, and we do a summary of the whole thing. The basics of evaluation. Is it okay if I make that assumption? Perfect. I see 3 or 4 people nodding heads, so I'm good. So with that assumption that we all know the basis of evaluation, let's focus on the contest itself. So we'll do it in 2 parts. One is I will just browse through what an evaluation contest, how the process of the evaluation contest, and then we will go into the actual evaluation of a speech. So there are several ways in which the evaluation can be done, and I will try to explain to you how I do it, or rather, how I think we should do it. Of course, there are several other ways, and in many cases, they are better. As you can learn, I have been the first champion. I haven't ever been the champion after that. So there are people who are better than me, and there are ways that are better than mine. So, but let's see. So this is a way you can pick something from it. You can give us some feedback so I can improve my ways and so on. Let me share my screen, and I just have 2 slides so that we can browse through the whole thing. Let me share my screen. Okay. I believe you can see my screen. Yeah. Right. So this is the process of evaluation contest. So it will start with a test speaker whom probably you would not know, or the speech you would not know. The test speaker comes and gives a speech. It's a normal 5 to 7 minute speech, normally of the generic kind, which means it doesn't have a project objective. It's more like a contest type of a speech, a motivational speech, or anything informative speech. In the hybrid era or the online era, we would then take notes sitting at our home. After the 5 minutes, this taking notes continues for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes has passed, you'd be asked to fold your paper. And this, of course, is the online era. In the actual offline, the papers will be taken out of you or taken out from you. You will fold the paper and you hold it in a position where it can be seen on the screen. Then you'll be taken to a breakout room if you are doing it online. There'll be a surgeon of arms making sure you're not peeping at your paper or doing something that's not warranted. Then the surgeon of arms would bring you back one after another into the main room. And then in the main room, you deliver the evaluation speech. There will be judges who will be judging your speech and you'll be ranked accordingly. Is there any confusion in the process? No, I believe questions are like breaths. Don't hold it too long. It may harm you. If you have a question, shoot right away, right? Good. So I'm assuming there are no questions. Now, when you deliver the speech, what does the judge judge you on? So this is what is known as the judge's ballot. Okay. So these are the 4 criterias for an evaluation speech on which the judge will judge you. What are they? And there are the total marks that you can get. So there is an analytical quality, which has 40 marks, the highest in evaluation. It means there's a lot of things written over here, but what it means is how well you have heard the speech and how well you have understood the speech. Okay, it's your analysis of the speech, how well you have heard and how well you can figure out how the speech can be better. So that is your analytical quality. Unfortunately, there is nothing directly that you can bring in the analytical quality. There is nothing that you can say, okay, I've said these 3 things, so my analytical quality is great. It's throughout your speech. That is the analytical quality. Recommendations is the feedback that you give. But this is the most important part of evaluation, because as part of the evaluation, we are telling the person, the speaker, what is good, but more importantly, what can be improved. And what is most important in recommendation is to actually show what you mean when you say something can be improved. So if you tell the speaker your voice can be modulated a little bit more, you have to tell him, your voice can be modulated a bit more. The modulation should come up when you are giving the feedback. It's very important, absolutely important, to show what your recommendation is. Then comes the technique. So technique is the way you're presenting the speech, how well you're making the comments. Is it made in a way that can discourage the speaker from coming up and evaluating? Because we are giving recommendation, we are telling them this is somewhere you can improve. It is on us to present it in a way that they do not feel beaten, they do not feel discouraged to come up next time on the stage. So that is the technique. And then summation, another very important part. When you sum up the whole thing together at the end and say, okay, these are the 3 things you probably could polish a little bit, and these are the 3 things you're brilliant at, and end something at a high. So these are the 4 areas in which you'll be judged. Again, any questions? Okay, I believe there are none. So, or is there is? No, right? Okay. So then, as I said, we will now move to the speech. We will see a speech that is online, and we will try to evaluate that speech together. We'll try to analyze the speech and find out how or what is it in that speech that really appealed to us, and what is in that speech that we can think can be changed so that it becomes appealing to us. Right, let's go to the speech. You guys can both see and hear? Perfect.
Brati, we cannot hear. I think you'll have to share sound as well.
All of you cannot hear?
No. Okay. When you share the screen, you'll have to click on that button.
Yeah, I know. But I thought I did. Anyway, I'll try again. Okay. How? Okay, so guys, while we are hearing the speech, what I would suggest, if you have a paper and a pen in front of you, or your laptop, or a Word document, whatever you're comfortable with, just jot down things that you think are interesting about the speech, both positive and negative. I normally use paper and a pen. It goes with my hair color. I'm a sort of a... So please have something ready, some sort of a note, and then we can go ahead.
Good afternoon, contest chair, esteemed judges, and my dear audience. Do you believe in everything happens for a reason? When I was little, I'd go to school, be the most disciplined student in the classroom. The one that never made noises. The one very different from reality. During one of the parent-teacher conferences, my teacher told my mom how well-mannered I was. Never a part of any mischief. I got my mom worried. At the dinner table that night, my mom told my family that I had split personality disorder. She couldn't construe how a talkative child like me with an untiring exuberance could be anything close to quiet. Let me take you back to when I was born. Right after my birth, I was put under observation because my throat was clogged with mucus. So much that the milk won't seep in. A pipe was inserted through my throat to eject 2 bottles of mucus out of my 7-pound body. And my mom says that is probably the reason why my voice is coarser than others. I did not realize how different I was from others until I grew up to go to school. And my classmates would make fun of me every time I tried to talk. They would laugh at me. They started giving me names, one of which was a eunuch, which meant a transgender, because I looked like a girl but sounded like a guy. I tried to join a choir, from which I was kicked out. And I understand, you don't want anybody with my voice singing, "Silent night, holy night." My mom thought she was trying to help me by pushing me to take singing lessons. But I hated it, because no matter how much I tried, my sa-re-ga-ma-pa did not have the rhythm my music teacher expected. My teacher claimed that I screamed too much, which is why my voice was always so. But don't you get it? This is how it's going to be. This is my voice, this is how I'm going to sound. All right, I sound horrible. I shut up. I won't sing, I won't talk. I'll be as silent as you want me to be. I lost my confidence. I wanted to just disappear in a corner of a room. Do you believe in everything happens for a reason? In my 8th grade, my teacher decided every student in the classroom is going to take turns to give a speech after morning prayer. My turn was to come the following week, and I was petrified. As a 14-year-old, I decided I'm going to do what I can and not worry about what I cannot control. So I started writing my first script for a speech, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced really hard. And on the day, I went up to the front of the school, held the mic with my sweaty palm, felt the stiffness at the back of my spine, and looked up to the audience, said, "Good morning," with my loud and crisp voice, and gave my first ever speech, which was titled, "Cleanliness is next to godliness." And I remember I did not forget a word. After I said, "Thank you," I heard claps, loud claps. There, right then, that very moment was the birth of my self-confidence. It was a realization that I have a voice. I wonder if those people know how they contributed in boosting my confidence. By my 9th grade, I started participating in group discussions and debates, and often got compliments for how strongly my voice projected. The same voice that irritated people with an ounce of confidence was appreciated by people. After I came to the US 5 years ago, I found out about Toastmasters, and it gave wings to my passion for public speaking, followed by a lot of claps after every speech I gave. Do you believe in everything happens for a reason? Yes. If my voice were different, maybe I would have never worked hard on my speech delivery and would never be standing in front of you giving the speech. It's not that I don't get bullied for my voice anymore. On my YouTube channel, there are comments that are harsh and insensitive. There is one anonymous viewer that has commented they'd prefer to die than to hear my voice. Those comments don't bother me anymore because I have embraced my uniqueness. What I perceived as a weakness was a mere self-doubt, and in reality is a gift. I have one takeaway for you today. Nobody is perfect. We all have our strengths and our challenges to overcome. What matters is our attitude. Do we give up or do we try? If today you're thinking, why? Why me? Why am I having to go through heartbreak over and over again? Why is it that my boss hates me so much? Whatever it is that is bothering you today, know that it is happening for a reason. It is happening to make you wait for the right one, to strengthen your character, to reveal to you that you're unique and you're special, and that you deserve so much better than you know. Do you believe in everything happens for a reason?
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Right. So this is the speech by Ishrain Hussain. Everything happens for a reason. Let's get into the speech and see what we can find out about the speech. Now, sometimes what I do is when the speech is as good as the one that we just heard, instead of first trying to figure out what is good about the speech, because there is so much things good about the speech, I try to spend more time in figuring out what are the things that I can recommend about. So should we try that? Should we first try to figure out what are the things you thought was a little out of the way? Come on, don't make me a table topics master. Yes, Gayatri, please go ahead.
The stage movement, I thought she was moving from one side to another without a justified cause.
Would you have an example for that?
Yes, when she spoke about standing in the school assembly, she went too far in one of the corners of the stage, and the movement, she moved in the center before that story was over. So it did not feel like the purpose was served.
So stage movement coordination was missing.
It felt a little off.
Okay, let me share my screen and I'll come up with an Excel. Right, so the stage movement coordination was missing. Right, who's next? Come on, guys, whatever you
Hello.
think. Yeah, please.
I think emotion was missing in some content.
So can I get your name?
Arun Jyoti.
Arun Jyoti. So Arun, where do you think this has happened? Emotion was missing.
See, when she was not, her voice was not proper. When it was
which
told
part
by
of
her
the
mother
speech?
in a childhood, and then when she was said that she was not insensitive when somebody says harsh comments. So when she heard some harsh comments, so what kind of feeling, that expression could have been shown. That is what emotional picturization was missing in my view.
Facial expression. So you are talking about
yes, most of the time the expression was uniform and then enthusiastic mode was there, but I think some sadness or something could have been shown when there is some insensitive comments, some wrong comments about her voice. People would rather die than prefer to listen to her speech. Something when it is being said, that expression could have been shown. That is my view.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do not have to add. That's your view. I mean, it's a generic thing. So facial expression, voice modulation was missing. Okay, what's next?
I would like to add to Gayatri's point.
Tarush, this is it?
No, this is
Aarti.
Aarti, sorry. Yeah, Aarti, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would like to add Toastmaster Gayatri's point here that when there's too much body language involved, the focus on listening to speech, it goes away. So
okay, so you are agreeing more or less to what Gayatri is saying.
Yeah.
So it was a disturbance for us to participate
to listen to the speech. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so stage movement was disturbing, right? Tarush, Gautami, whoever wants to go first.
Okay, sir, I found that there was a missing of action when she was speaking about the speech, like uh, when she was talking about his own experience, that what is the reason and how she has changes as well. So
Sorry, I missed
I've
that. What was missing? Accent,
action, sir.
action. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
would you sort of put it in the same bracket as facial expression, voice modulation, body language was little out of what was being spoken about?
No, sir, it was little different to the body language and emotional. Like when she was telling about that about his own experience, his own story. So I feel that he need to add some little bit of accent, sometime like little bit of reaction related to that accent, that from how
Can you
she
give an
changed.
example? Can you give an example?
Like for example.
Okay, you can think about it. We can come back to you. Just think about an example, and
Okay, sir.
we can come back to you. But it's a good point. It's a good point. I'll just put it on a side. So some actions relevant to speech, and then let's come back to this. Yes, Gautam.
Yeah. I actually had an issue with the content here. Like, I think the entire speech was about how she embraced something people thought was negative, and she embraced it, made it her USP, and leveraged it for something that makes her happy. But it was titled Everything Happens for a Reason, which I didn't really find throughout the speech. She mentioned it
Interesting
once
point.
or twice, like, why did this happen to me? But it wasn't prominent at all. It was just in the passing. And in the end, she said that, do you believe everything happens for a reason? But honestly, that had no connection with the entire beautifully written speech otherwise.
Mm.
I think that was
She she
the issue.
she did she did say everything happens for a reason. I think 3 or 4 times in the speech. But I take your point, and it's a a very interesting point. Let us come back to this. So the everything happens for a reason. I'll put a star on this, and we will discuss further on it. Okay, Avinash, please go ahead.
What I can see in this speech is I will add to the Gautami's point that I don't see the clear structure of this. Speech structure was not clear as I cannot see the transition happening from the introduction, then the middle of the speech, then the conclusion. So I don't see the clear transition. Like initially she told about delivering her first speech in school, then later on getting into the coming to the US and then joining Toastmasters, then able to deliver a speech. And everything happens for a reason was her subject line, but the speech structure by on which she was delivering the speech, that was not clear.
Yeah, so Avinash, that's a very valid point. The only thing is, we have to be in a contest. We have to be much more specific. So you have to go there and say, okay, your introduction and conclusion, or introduction and body, however it was, instead of this, if you present it in another way, which you have to show, it would have make things much more clear.
Okay.
So
In this, I will add that I was not able to connect the transition happening in the entire speech. Means
but then
connect.
what would you suggest? So what is your suggestion to make the changes so that the transition becomes apparent? That is something you have to add.
Yes, at least something should be there there in the introduction. Then from that, like everything happens for a reason in which she particularly told her, about her voice, that her voice is a little bit harsh or some baritone is there. So she needs to tell that how that is impacting the theme of the speech, that everything happens for a reason. So in that way, she needs to tell that how that thing is happening, and speech should be such that audience can follow. And I was not able to follow it. Like it's a kind of moving train which was continuously flowing and flowing, and that it ended.
Mm. I get your point, Avinash, and it does match with one of the things I have noted as well. But let's come back to that. What I'm trying to point out is when we are delivering in a contest, we cannot make a generic statement. We cannot say the speech structure was such that I could not follow. We have to be more specific, saying that, okay, if you had a speech structure which was like this, probably it would have been easier for people to follow. But let us come back. I get what you were saying. Let us first collect a couple of things. Anyone else, please? Come on, there surely would be other things we can point out here. That means.
I have one more.
Yes.
So when everyone was speaking about the stage presence, there was one thing I noticed. She started speaking about her first speech in school. And she was talking about how she was standing on the stage and she was frightened. And she was doing all this on the corner of a stage. Instead, if she had done this thing center stage, wherein the speech is delivered, and then moved away, when she was talking about the audience, like, oh my God, they were looking at me, they were clapping at me. And if she did that from the corner of a speech, it would be an act where it would be like, okay, now people are actually admiring her. And on center stage, it is only her, it is about her. So that is one way she could have actually made the stage, that part better.
Okay, so this is a suggestion that you were suggesting,
Yeah.
that the stage usage could have been better.
Yeah, for that part, it could be done in a better manner.
Okay. Okay, I see Sharmishta has raised a hand. Please go ahead, Sharmishta.
Hi. So I felt that her speech was moving from the introduction to the body, and most of the part she was telling about her story, how she was initially demotivated by the harsh comments and other thing, and then gradually she start motivating herself after getting those claps and other thing. But at the end, it was more or less abrupt. I mean, she has spoken about herself, but there was not much of action to take back for the audience. That how they will get inspired, and how, I mean, if I relate to the speech title, that everything happens for a reason, that her case was that her voice was hoarse, and she had taken it to the, and that is the reason why she has worked hard for her speech to perfect. To make her speech to that level that she could deliver it properly. But what is the action for the other audience? It is not that their voice will be coarse and other thing. So what is that? How the action will be there for the other audience? If she could have
Call
elaborated
to action.
yes,
Call to action
in the last part, in the
But
conclusion, and then uh, she would have concluded in that way. It would have
okay,
been it would have been, I mean, the audience would have felt connected. That's
okay.
my take
But
on that.
did she not say something like that? If something is happening bad to you, it is happening for a reason. It will make you stronger. I believe there's something like this.
She did mention that if your boss is shouting at you,
Yes,
or
yes,
something
absolutely.
like that, but it was done in a very hurried manner.
Yeah,
Just one
it
or two
was
lines.
not given enough importance.
Enough importance, yes.
Right. Okay.
And one more thing, I felt that she was unnecessarily, every action she was bending her knees. I mean, was it necessary? Because if she had done that action on every sentence, it would not create that much impact.
So distracting movements.
Distracting.
Okay. Anyone else, please, want to add to this?
Yes, I agree to Sharmishta regarding that, like the clapping of hand. The clap, she started clapping the hand.
Even the shoe, the sound of the shoes was sometime going above her speech. Yes.
Then the movement, she said, I back out, but she is not moving with the back out. Like she went aside, like at the corner of the stage, but the word she pronounced is, I'm going to back out. that had not been done with the action.
Right. It was not
Action
coordinated.
and the word was not coordinated.
Absolutely. Agree. Okay. So we have quite a few. Now, in an evaluation contest, remember you are given 2 to 3 minutes, right? You probably would have, now, if you can find out, and there are more to come to this, I can promise you that, more things where she could improve. If in a speech like this, and we all agreed at the beginning that it was a great speech, if in a speech like this, you can already find out 6 points, and I'm sure there would be around 10, right? You have to be very, very selective about what you are going to present when you are giving your speech. Because you'd have 2 to 3 minutes, office recommendation probably would be 1.5 minutes you're speaking about. And you have to show what you mean when you say this thing can be improved. So you have to actually move from side to side to say, okay, when you said this, if you could have been on this side of the stage, and when you said this, if you could have been on the other side of the stage, you actually have to show and say. So first thing which I follow in evaluation is discard anything that requires a lot of explanation and that is difficult to prove. For example, we were discussing about the transitions were not very proper. It was not, I agree. But how am I going to say that? How I am going to present that when I say the transitions are not proper? Am I going to actually write the speech and say, okay, you should have done this? It's not possible, right? In an evaluation, you are not the mentor. Remember, there is a big difference between the mentor and the evaluator. Don't try to be the mentor of the speech, right? You are just telling them in 2 to 3 minutes what can be improved. You are not changing the speech like a mentor. Can you just excuse me for 30 seconds?
Apologies for the interruption. He'll be back in 30 seconds. I really hope everybody is finding this session engaging.
Right. Hopefully,
Yes.
I was back before 30 seconds. Sorry. So pick up the things that you can substantiate. Number one. Number two, things like, let's say, distracting movements. It's very, very apparent. Probably all of the contestants that you have who are fighting with you for a place will have noticed that. Try to avoid certain things. Try to avoid these things when you're actually going to the contest. Try to get deeper into the speech to figure out things that probably would not be so apparent, right? You can say, talk about distracting movements, and you can say, okay, when you said this, stay here. When you do this, go there. Probably everyone else will do so. So where is your differentiator in a contest? I'm talking about the contest, okay? Everything I'm saying is about the contest. Let's look at the speech a little more in a little more detail. First of all, she started with a humor, right? This is a nice story about her mother finding her to be, what she used? That
Split
she was
personality.
split personality, right? So it's quite humorous and all. But is it relevant to the speech? At that moment, I found the humor is not relevant to the speech. Similarly, the singing lessons. The singing lessons that she had been kicked out of the choir or the singing lessons she used to take probably has nothing to do with her voice, right? It has probably something to do that she is not a better singer than me, right? I mean, she cannot keep the rhythm or that kind of a thing. It's nothing to do with her voice, right? There are a lot many singers who have baritone voice, harsh voice, and we still listen to them. So these humors are used, but they are not very relevant to the speech. So maybe we can suggest you remove these humors. You can have some other humor which are more relevant to the speech, right? And this is something you can point out and say, see, this humor is not relevant to the speech, so you remove it. You make the speech thinner, you make the speech leaner, right? Second, and the most important recommendation that I felt, What do you think is the most important part of the speech? What is called the flex point of the speech? Anyone? And I found one. So which is the flex point, you think? The most important part of the speech?
When she delivered a speech in her school, I think.
Her voice.
No. So the flex point is something when the speaker speaks about a problem and then it goes at the bottommost part when there is nothing, there is problem all around, you are discouraged, nothing is happening right, and then you go up. So that is called the flex point. So which is this flex point in the speech?
Her voice. She said she.
Go ahead. Sumit, go ahead.
She said she got some mucus, and that's a problem had made her voice like tuned as a guy, not as a girl.
Clapping of audience while delivering her speech in school.
No, so again, the flex point is the bottommost point. Clapping is going up.
The comments on her YouTube videos, like, people were saying they would rather die.
Yeah, but that came much later. You remember at one point of time, she said, okay, I will listen to you, I will shut up. So that is when she has given up all hope. That is when she said, I'm a complete failure, I'm a loser, I would not ever be able to do anything. So that is the bottommost part of the speech of her self-confidence. If you listen to the speech, that came up very, very abruptly. And it almost came up, I would not say it's a wrong grammar, but the sentences were put in a jumbled sort of way. So at one moment, she was talking about her getting into in a laughing manner, her getting into a choir, kicked out of a choir, and so on. And then suddenly it was, okay, I will not talk, I will shut up. The flex point needs to have much more focus, because that is where it makes the speaker or it makes the audience feel with you. I mean, it makes the audience empathize with you. So it either has to come with an event. So maybe her kicked out of the choir has to be focused more, that something happened and she was left out of the choir, or her being kicked out of the music lessons could have been given more emphasis. And then she could say, that's the day I decided, I will quit, I'll shut up. And then a pause. The voice changes along with the pause. That makes you feel, okay, this lady is nowhere. Now, when she rises up from there, that's give you the goosebumps, right? So it's very, very important to focus on that flex point. And she did not. And that is where our points come in, right? Everything was, it did not sum up so much content, but it did not sum up in the way she has been. So that's another point that I think we could have focused on, the flex points. And the double star that we have over here, everything happens for a reason. Now, how many of you have heard this speech by Hetriachi? There is something about you. Many of you have, right? If you haven't, please have a look at it. It's one of the best speeches I have heard. It was a World Championship winner speech, I think, in a long time, 2003, 4 or something. In that speech, or any speech, a real good speech would have a line, would have a central concept that we keep coming back to. And in this speech, she tries it with everything that happens for a reason. It's a very good concept. It's a very good line. Point is, when you're coming back to that concept, you have to come back with a very solid example. So let us now go back and find out when we hear this, everything happens for a reason. First, we hear it at the beginning of the speech as a question, right? Nothing has been told now. She starts with, do you believe everything that happens with a reason? And if you refer to the response of the audience, I actually heard a no. I don't know if I heard wrong, but I actually heard a no, and they were very, very low because no one was ready for the question. It's such a philosophical question and so on. So probably such an important thing could have come in a little later. Maybe that she had mucus in her throat and it has been taken out and she has a harsh voice. And a question with a pause. Do you believe everything that happens for a reason? I did not for a long time, even after that, when I was kicked out of my choir. So that is the transition that Avinash was talking about. So the transitions has to be there, which should join to the other things. So that is the example of transition you can put it. So everything that happens for a reason has to be a very, very solid thing if you want to make it meaningful. It has to come in at points where it exactly matches. So mucus, 2 bottles of mucus taken out of your 7-pound body is something that is very, it's like a punishment almost to a newborn. And for that, she has a harsh voice. Then when you say everything that comes, it really will hit you. Then you go on and on, you're kicked out of a choir. Do you believe everything that happens for a reason? So you're building up the pitch. And then when you finally go and say that I was called and I gave the speech and there were claps, after the clap, after the high, you drop your voice down and say, and now do you believe everything that happens for a reason? That's when you kick the point in. That's when your audience believes that yes, everything that happens for a reason. So you have to build it up. Just saying it would not work. No, you have to build it up with your story. Okay, so that is where everything that happens for a reason could have been put in a much, much better way. And you can explain that as well. You can put it over here after you talked about the baby girl being treated such. And then when you're kicked out of your choir and your music group, you can ask that. And then when people claps and you're invited to speak in groups and all, then if you put this in, then this really makes sense. Right? Lastly, what I found could have been different. See, this is like everything that happens for a reason. What are the reasons we have heard about? She has a harsh voice. She has a baritone kind of a voice. There are no reasons for us to believe that it is because of her voice she has been kicked out of a choir. In fact, a choir would probably prefer such a voice. If you actually talking about a choir, you really need a higher bass voice to be in a choir. When she is asked to speak, it is not because of her voice she is asked to speak. I mean, at no point of time she says that because of my voice I'm asked to speak. Right? So there is a little bit of a disconnect when she tries to connect her voice being harsh and she is being called up for the speech. It is much later in the speech when she said, well, if my voice was much sweeter, probably I would not have put in so much effort. So that comes in much later in the speech. By that time, you're a little confused. What is the connection between her voice being harsh and she being called for a speech or her being moved out of the choir? So this thing that everything that happens for a reason, we probably needed a few more examples where she has put an effort because she has been kicked out of other things because of her voice. And then she has put an effort for being a good speaker. And then she has come up and at this area level and delivering a speech in a contest or something. So these are the 4 or 5 points I feel about the speech. One, the humor being disconnected. It can be removed from the speech. It would really not make any difference because it's not connected to the speech. The flex point of the speech has to be emphasized a lot more. Everything happens for a reason. Coming back to it, making it really give a meaning to it that would require it to be placed within the speech at a more strategic position, not just being thrown like that. That's west of the line. And lastly, we need a little more different examples to connect the theme of the speech to the content of the speech. Right? Now, these points are in addition to the stage usage, to the facial expression, the distracting movements and all that. So even in a speech like this, now I will share something and help. I would request some help over here. It's a myth Let's say if you hear champion speaking, world champion speaking, there could be nothing to evaluate in the speech. I can guarantee you, if you take up a world champion winning speech and you sit with it really intently, you can find out things to evaluate. It's a guarantee. You can take any speech and we can discuss on it, right? Okay, help me with this picture. Do you know who this is?
We cannot see the photograph.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to probably stop the screen share and screen share again.
Okay. Let me do that. Now can you see?
Yes.
Priyanka Chopra.
This is Priyanka Chopra. Good. And what has this year got to do with her?
She was the Miss World.
Right.
Yeah.
Miss Universe, I think.
No, Miss World.
Miss World.
Miss World. And when this picture came up in, I think 2013 or something.
2021, I think. 20 or 21.
No, not so recently. I think it was around 13 or 14. There she was dressed like this, and there was a huge amount of negative publicity. She was not married at that point of time. 2013 or so. My point is, if a Miss World can have, what to say, a oops moment like this, I'm sure every speech could have an evaluation that can be put to it. So let's do away with the myth that if it is a world champion speech, it cannot be evaluated. Everything can be evaluated. As you see, we have just evaluated the speech which we thought was so great. We have found 10 beautiful points which we can give back in evaluation. So just look at the speech when you are evaluating the speech. Think about it intently. What is something that you can really go back to the speaker and say, okay, this, if it happened, you made a real great speech. Then choose 3 or 4, depending on how quickly you can speak, 3 or 4 points out of it. In a speech like this, it's very easy to find the positive points. You can talk about her confidence. Even before she speaks, she goes and elbow bumps, right? This was 2020. So it's just the starting of the COVID. So the elbow bump was a trendy thing. So she goes and elbow bumps. So her confidence was supreme. Her pronunciation was very, very good. If you really look at the pronunciation, the words she was throwing was very good. The message itself, of course, and her life story coming out with it was a very nice presentation. So a lot of positive points and quite a few things to improve. Summarize it and present it together. The most important thing is to do this analysis. And the more you can practice, we have done this probably in 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes. There you have to do it in 3 minutes in the contest, because 3 minutes you note everything down. Then you pick up a couple of things, and in the next 2 minutes, you prepare a speech on it. So the more you can practice, and the good thing about evaluation is you can practice alone. You can take up any speech from YouTube, just go through it, try to find out positives, negatives, prepare a speech yourself and deliver it. So the more you practice, the better you become at this, and the quicker you can find out things that can be improved on. Right. So people who are not asleep, if you have any question. So I would have a question. So Gautami, what are your judgments now? Are you participating?
Yeah, my club president is going to be so happy when I say this, that I am going to try this time. I'm really, really going to try. I have never been in a contest for evaluation, but this time, even if I lose, I will try. And if I do win somewhere, I'm going to give you a shout out on Instagram, Toastmaster Brati.
Can you make that on Facebook or WhatsApp? Instagram is not.
Yeah. Facebook also works, definitely.
Okay, yeah, I'll come to the questions. Just one comment before I go to the questions is, so I believe in one thing about Toastmasters is the place where you should try things you're not good at. right? I probably would be trying humorous speech. And, this is again a joke I tell everyone that the last time they only laughed when I told it is a humorous speech. So, and I'm very bad at it, but I will still try probably. So please try if you're not good at it. If you're good at it, you can, or you may not, but please try. Yeah, let's go to the question. I'll start with Ram because I saw that hand before Ayush. So Ram, your question, please.
Sure. Thank you. So apologies, I missed the speech, so I couldn't ask questions related to the speech, but
I'll give you the link in the chat. You can look at it later.
Fantastic. So my question is, I spend a lot of time making notes and then trying to pick what's relevant. So thank you for sharing tips on focusing on specific areas. But my question was going to be, how much as a percentage do you focus on the speech versus the structure versus the content? So it feels like you can't do too much of one and too much of the other. It feels like some things will score better from an evaluation and others would score average scores. Yeah, because everybody, when they get to a certain level, certainly when you get to area and district level, division level, most people should be roughly the same. So you need to shine above everybody else.
The
so
differentiator.
My question is proportion. Yeah, what should we focus on in regards to proportions?
Absolutely, Ram. A very good question. Yes, and you're absolutely right. You have to be the differentiator. You have to bring up the differentiator in your presentation, especially at a division or a district level. I personally focus more on the content. Because I believe most people focus on stage movements and facial expressions and stuff. So I really try to focus on the content and what is something to be done about the content. Okay. Saying that, there are people who focuses on other things as well, the body language and stage movement, and they have been brilliant evaluators as well. But if you personally ask me, it's about 60%, 70% content, 30% stage movements from it.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, I think the next question was from Ayush, was it? Ayush?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So first of all, I would like to thank you for conducting this in our area as a division director. I really appreciate that for taking out the time. And thanks to area K3 director Gayatri as well. So my question to you is, sir, in evaluation contest, the first contestant and the last contestant makes a lot of difference. So being the first contestant, it's very tough for me to think because I don't have time. So what is your suggestion on that? And being the last contestant, I have so much to think that I get confused which points to put forward. Can you explain us what to do in that situation? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so the first contestant is easy. You carry your lucky charm and pray you are not the first contestant. You really cannot do anything about it. Yes, this is something that we have spoken in length, how we can make the first contestant helpful. Saying that, Ayush, I've seen the first contestant win contest as well. You have to make best use of the 5 minutes you get, and maybe a minute or so if you are the first contestant. The last contestant, I don't really see if there is a problem. I mean, you can go over your speech, polish it, put in humor, whatever you want to do. Normally, you would not have more than 10 contestants in a contest because then you would go into a semi-final. So 10 contestants is like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So it's okay in an evaluation contest. But being the first contestant is a disadvantage, I agree. Even the second contestant to a level. But nothing can be done at this moment about it. So maybe we can practice. You can when you practice that you are always the first contestant. You just give yourself 5 minutes and don't go and deliver the speech. Yes, DTM or no? Nice to see you.
It's always a pleasure to attend this. My internet is bad, so I may break in and break up. My voice may break. You spoke about content, but how exactly do you evaluate content? I know because it is something that even I can't completely focus on. Because I mean, say playing again devil's advocate here, wouldn't a judge think of it this way, right? You're supposed to evaluate the speech, as in the way it is delivered and everything. The content is ideally the speaker's choice. So how do you go about it? I don't know if I'm able to frame the question correctly. How do you go about evaluating content
without upsetting the speaker and saying that, hey, I wanted to deliver this message, but the evaluator is something else.
Right. So, Arnab, when I set the content, and thank you for this question because it allows me to clarify. So when I said the content, I really meant whatever like we were discussing, right? Like the structure of the speech. Is the humor necessary?
Okay.
Is the humor relevant? It's not the subject per se. It's not if someone comes and says that, Argentina would go nowhere close to winning the World Cup even this year. No, we are not going to dispute that. But it is more about how you place it, right? How the structure is, that kind of thing as the content.
Okay.
And as I said, thank you.
So this can be relevant, and what more you can add to make your point more relevant instead of taking.
Absolutely. Or whatever you have said, is that required? Are you making your speech fat without adding anything to the value? That kind of. Right? Any other questions?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, you have told that we can go through the videos, and from that we can analyze and we can practice and improve ourselves in this evaluation. But sir, for example, sometimes we feel very difficulty to analyze and find the recommendation for the speaker. So what tips or strategy we can use so we can understand and we can have a proper commendation and recommendation for the speaker? Sometimes we happen so much in a difficult situation, like we feel that the speech is very nice, we could not be able to find any recommendation, but there is some recommendation. So on that thing, what we can do, sir?
Yeah, a couple of things you can do. One is when you search for the speech on the YouTube, you search with maybe an icebreaker. So search with an icebreaker. Normally the icebreaker speech would not be above a certain level, right? When you are comfortable with doing icebreakers, you may search for, let's say, a club contest speech. You can then search for area contest speech. There are various kinds of speech all around. And then you can go up to the world championship level. So just go step by step if you have the time. That's one thing. Second thing is, don't think about the speech. I mean, as I said, don't go by the glamour of the speech. This speech was extremely glamorous, the one we heard. It was about a girl who had a bad voice and whatever difficulty she faced, she was presenting so nicely. So there's a lot of glamour about the speech. What you have to do is actually hear the speech and think, okay, this does not sound right. So that is something you have to practice. Right. So Tarush, just practice it. I think you can. It would not be too difficult after a few tries.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Sure,
yeah, and I think Ram also has a very good point over here. You can go to other meetings, and nowadays with online, you can go to global meetings and see if you can be an evaluator and stuff. Right. I think Rajiv has a question. Can we make that the last question, please?
Thank you so much. I do have one question on the commendations and recommendation part. So is there any specific number that you recommend to have the balance between commendation and recommendation? And also there is a saying that, okay, when we say like, yeah, this is the CRC approach that I'm going to say to conclude. So these are some of the cliche dialogues that we use in evaluation. So how to make it in a better way that we can avoid these usual things? Thank you so much.
Very good question. So there are two parts to the question. One is the number of commendation, recommendation. Let me answer that first. So that will depend on how quickly you speak. With the pace that I use, I normally go for 3 to 3. The 3 commendations, 3 recommendations. There are people who can do 4 and 4. So it really depends on how quickly you can speak and how quickly but meaningfully you can have it presented. Right. So that will, again, the final number will be decided by the practice you can do. So 3 to 4, depending on how quickly you speak. In terms of sorry, Raji, what was the question?
Yeah, the second question was like, yeah, the usage of I am going to conclude, I am
right.
using TRC and all those like usual ways of saying like, okay, to evaluate these, so how to avoid those and
So, the very good question, Rajiv, and again, thank you for bringing this up so that I can speak about it. There are two major interfaces or two major joins in an evaluation speech, or three, let's say. One is when you're giving an introduction to the speech. So you start saying that, thank you, contest chair, Toastmasters, guests, and so in particular. I was mesmerized by the speech, right? Because of, and then you go into the commendation. So this first couple of lines, I was mesmerized by the speech, can link to the speech itself, right? Say, for example, if someone was speaking about a journey, you can talk about, and the beautiful journey we had through your speech. Something like that, something related to the speech. Then when the join comes between the commendation and the recommendation, when you're changing from the commendation to the recommendation. So like, just like a journey would have a few blisters on the feet, let me give you some examples where the blisters will be a little lesser. Something linked to that same theme of the speech, right? And then finally, when you come to the conclusion, again, a similar thing, which will bring into the conclusion. So as I said, you have 5 minutes. So 3 minutes is for collecting whatever analysis you have done. 2 minutes is to prepare the speech. And this preparation of the speech should also have this interfaces between these three different parts. The introduction, the connection between the commendation, recommendation, and the connection between the recommendation and the conclusion. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Rajiv?
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to take a leave now. Sorry about this. This was getting very interesting, but I'm really sorry. If you have any further question, do ping me, call me up. It's not a problem. I'll be very happy to answer. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I always love such an opportunity. DTM Gayatri. Over to you, to the MC, Toastmaster Gautam.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Brati. I'm not going to keep you for long. I am glad to have attended this workshop beyond a sandwich method. This is something extremely new, and I think all of us are going to benefit from it. Coming back to the cartoon that you mentioned, my evil side says, I'm so glad TTM Arnab does not have a good internet connection today. I'm very happy. And with that, with everything that you have provided us, we are so thankful, all of us. If everyone could just switch on their cameras for 1 minute, let's take a picture together, all of us, with Toastmaster Brati, our guru for the day. And let's just do this. Come on. Okay, who is going to click?
I will click it if everybody can just come up on their cameras for 1 moment only. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. And 1, 2, 3, say cheese. Done.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please, you could unmute, clap for Toastmaster Brati. And of course, we won't keep him for a long time. With this, I am going to announce that post this workshop, we are going to start with the training of how to use the breakout rooms. And for that, whoever wants to stay back, please stay back. Let's start with that training. And I officially declare the workshop as adjourned from my end. Over to you, Toastmaster Gayatri, DTM.